I was going to get the
There we
chat
go.
room up.
Hey, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the new media show. Rob and I are flying solo this show, and it's been a pretty busy week here for me, Rob. It's been high school graduation week.
Oh,
So,
that's always fun.
Yeah.
Kids are moving on to a new place in life, right?
Yeah, and just making my hair turn even more gray and losing hair. And, in Hawaii, it's interesting. It's unlike any other place in the country because, you have the standard graduation ceremony, and they have limited seating because it's big classes, just like many high schools in the United States. Yep. And my mom and sister were in, so we got them in, seated. We're all good, and there was enough room. And but what happens is about half hour before, maybe 45 minutes before the ceremony's over, you can see on the outlying areas, they did on the football field, on the outlying areas where there wasn't seating, this mass throng of people showing up. And what it is, it's all the aunties, uncles, friends, acquaintances, everyone you've known since you were basically out of the womb has shown up, and then some. Yeah. And I don't know if you saw my Facebook posting or not, but what traditionally happens is after the ceremony, everyone goes to the football field, and they have it sectioned off, A through C, D through F, so each quadrant, and then everyone has these huge signs that basically show it's got the kid's face, or basically a picture of the kid, so people can find you. There's literally thousands of people on the football field, and everyone's bringing leis. So they start off with just their cap and gown, and the next thing you know, my daughter was up to here in leis, and we had brought, and it could be anything from a flower lei, cookie lei, candy lei, money lei, adult prophylactic lei. I mean, you name it, they bring it. And then you have bags, and you take layers off to keep it from going over top of their head.
Yeah.
I took over 500 pictures. I think she was officially laid. And it's going to sound so weird. People in the mainland hear that, but LEI, maybe 200 times. So I came home with this car full of flowers and candy. It was crazy, but everyone had a great time.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's always fun. Yeah, that happened for my kids. I don't know, was it about 7 years ago now, or something like that? So, or 8 years ago. So, it's always a exciting time for them. It's a transition to a new section of their lives, and it's not without its challenges too.
Yeah, so. and now the graduation parties start for like the next 2 months. So
yeah, exactly. beer parties. Yeah, everybody's trying to think that they're not going to have to go back to school again, but then in the fall they go back to school again.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, one thing a question that keeps coming up on the new media side, and of course everyone, we're just sitting here kind of rapping a little bit, but definitely if you have comments on today's show, it's Todd or Rob at New Media Show. We'll get that out there at the beginning of the show this time, still the end, so we want to hear your comments or guest suggestions. And the Memorial Day weekend, a lot of people are traveling, so that's why Rob and I are here essentially solo today. We do appreciate the feedback we've been getting as well. So getting some good feedback. The one thing that keeps coming up, and this is a question that came into our tech support forum this weekend, and it's frustration. You can see that an average podcaster's have, and it says, does Blueberry count stats downloads for those applications? Oh, excuse me. It's am I reading the right thing? Oh, he's asking Spreaker and iHeartRadio. Does Blueberry count stat downloads for iHeart and Spreaker? I haven't seen anything in my stats to indicate they are. I see Stitcher and Downcast and other podcatchers, but not Spreaker or iHeart. And my response back to the podcaster, and this happens way too many times, was, sadly, no. Unlike Stitcher sends a signal back for us to count, the folks at Spreaker and iHeartRadio do not. We've tried for a long time to get them to implement the same solution that Stitcher does, My advice is to complain loudly to Spreaker and iHeartRadio. We could start tracking immediately if they did. Now, he responds, okay, simple enough. I'll, basically go ahead and do that. But he goes back and says, what about TuneIn and Swell? So it's the same thing. It's just, two more players that are not reporting any data. So, if these guys, they could be reporting great, listens, but we would never know.
Well, that's not entirely true. I know that the Swell application does ping the source server for most of the shows that they have on their platform. So yeah,
I don't think we knew about that. I don't think we've seen that.
Well, I thought that RAM had reached out to you and talked to you about it.
Yeah, last we knew they hadn't implemented it, but I will.
Okay.
I'll make a note here to.
Yeah, I talked to RAM about some of this stuff, here recently. So, and he's pretty adamant that he's pinging the server. So if you have a bunch of unknown kind of requests coming in, he could be one of them. So.
All right. Well, and if he has been, we'll be able to go back and run a.
Yep. It's just a matter of getting what he's sending out as his ID, right?
Yeah.
On his request.
And I'm going. That's weird.
Yeah. Speaking of iHeartRadio and Spreaker, Francisco agreed to come on the show. He's the CEO and founder of Spreaker. He's going to be on the show next week.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, I invited him to come on to talk about their app program and what's going on with iHeartRadio and Spreaker and all that stuff, and he agreed to come on the show.
Well, very, very cool. I did a search on my email, and I don't see anything from him.
From who?
From Francisco on Spreaker. So.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's next week. It could be the week after. I'm trying to remember which way. Yeah.
No. I'm just saying in reference to the stat stuff. So,
I see what you're saying. Sure.
Huh. Well, I'll get to the bottom of it right away. But, well, good. If they are, then we can pick that data up.
Well, no, Swell is doing it. I don't know.
Swell. Okay.
Yep. So I'm pretty positive that Swell is doing it. So you guys just aren't able to identify that.
Yeah.
So that would be worth a conversation.
Yeah. And if they've sent us something, and we normally don't miss that kind of stuff, but we'll definitely keep an eye out. I know we had talked, because they came on, and had some new people that were helping out, and it was a discussion point in the podcasting technology group, I think, and we kind of pinged them on it and said, hey, can you do that? And but good. Well, we'll see what they're pinging. We can, because
one of the whole issues around that that as an industry we need to address is that there are some opportunities to do a much better job of delivering content to listeners if there is a cooperative relationship between the platform and the content provider, and that's what Swell is trying to create. They're trying to create kind of like a personalized radio experience, and they're trying to give a very consistent experience to the listener, and a very personalized one. Almost like a personal radio station, right? So you basically have shows that are delivered to you through this app that are personalized to you based on your history, your interests. The app learns from your behavior, and I think it could be kind of the next phase of consumption, because I think that the big issue is not necessarily discovery, and I know we've talked about this a lot on the show. I think the big issue is consumption, and it's how listeners get access to the content, and is the platform that's making that available to them smart enough to know what you want to listen to, when you want to listen to it, based on where you're at, what you're doing, what's the context of things that are you're reading about or you're doing at the time, and delivering audio to you that's appropriate to that. I mean, if you have a new podcast that comes out every Thursday, that's your favorite, that you listen to every week, when it comes out, it's sitting there ready to play, right? Yeah. So, you just hit play. or you get in the car and you just hit one button and it starts playing. It really gets back to the simplicity of regular broadcast radio, right? You just get in the car, turn the ignition on, hit the power button, and you have radio, right? It needs to be that simple, and I think that's the problem that Swell is trying to solve. And I believe that Stitcher is trying to do that as well, though I'm not sure that they're as focused on the machine learning kind of capabilities of context. So anyway, that's kind of a long-winded explanation of my thoughts on all that.
Well, one thing's for sure is that the Stitcher folks are definitely doing a real good job of promotion. Your show goes up, you get about an hour later, you get an email that said, "Hey, we picked up your new episode." They let you know that it's up on the site. It's a reminder that I'm going to sneeze, maybe. Basically can go out and then set up a basically maybe do email notifications, and if they do push notifications as well to the listeners, that's good too. So,
and I agree with you. I think push notifications and just the whole concept of notifying you that there's a new episode of your favorite show that's available, I think is a powerful one that really hasn't been done effectively. And I think it's interesting what Stitcher is trying to do. They're trying to almost be a breaking news source. They're trying to be something different than I think we expected them to be, and that's kind of like a news source. And I guess it's kind of interesting the direction that they're pushing. I mean, I get a notification of like an earthquake somewhere or that's happening, and it's coming from Stitcher,
right,
which is an interesting twist on it.
Hey, I wanted to show you something, and this is kind of non-podcast related, but I know that you do, you're looking at sustainable stuff, and let me see if I can bring this up for you. Let me refresh the page, and I don't know if I talked about this last show. Did I talk about Watt Vision at all the last show?
Mm-mm. Nope.
All right, so let me show you this. This is a good example. I installed a Watt Vision is a sensor that goes on your power meter, and it's able to measure your house consumption. And so let me bring this up. So what it's showing right now on this page is up to about 5:30 this morning. The house was kind of like in what I would consider night mode, pulling 950 watts. That's about what we're burning at night. And then this was the turn on of the studio in increments, and it went up to 2120. So I've been doing this on all of my different appliances and everything else to find out where we're truly using power here, because my wife has been pointing a finger at me saying, this studio is the reason our electricity bill is so high. And while it is, 1,000 or so watts, but it's not for a long time. It's like when the show's over, I'll turn off about 80% of the stuff in the studio, and it'll go down, and we'll be down to like 100 or maybe 150 watts profile for the studio. And so I thought it was pretty interesting. And this thing tracks by every minute. It does a reading, and it actually, you put your kilowatt per hour price in, and it's going to calculate what your bill is, and you can see your usage trends and how much the dryer uses, and it's really pretty incredible. So if someone's wanting to track what's going on with their power usage at home, wattvision.com, you can get one of these for yourself. That's awesome. It's really slick.
So is it a battery operated device that just attaches to your meter? Is that what it is?
No, it attaches to the meter, and then you have to run a line. And for me, it was lucky. My meter was close to my garage door, and so I stapled it in and run the line into the garage. But in the garage, I've got my Windows Home Server and my Apple, all my stuff that's for my backup out there, and I've got a land drop. I've actually got a switch in there, so it's got a little device that comes with it. You plug one into the sensor and the other end into your LAN, and it basically sends this heartbeat information over to Watt Vision, and they record it, and you can see exactly, what your usage is in your house. It's all based on you have to put a multiplier in. It tells you what to look at on your meter. They support 3 different meter types, and it's really pretty cool.
So it's an Ethernet connection? Is that what it is?
Yeah, it's I think it's it looks like telephone line from the sensor to the pickup box, and then from the pickup box, it's a Ethernet.
I got you. It's too bad it's not
Wi-Fi.
wireless.
Yeah, I agree, but you still have to have power to it.
Yeah, I think we're going to see more of these kind of things, and kind of on this same theme. There's a company that I've been talking to over the last couple of years. It's called I think the company's called Osmos, out of San Francisco, and they make a wireless connected sensor box, basically, that has the ability to plug in a whole bunch of sensors into this box that then transmits that to a site online that puts it into charts and graphs. And the purpose of this is to put into greenhouses and to track temperature, solar radiation, humidity. And if you're running like an aquaponic system, it'll actually have sensors that go in the water to sense different levels of minerals in the water if you're trying to grow produce or whatever in water, which is exactly what I do here in my backyard.
Right.
It'll give you all those readings and send them up to the cloud, essentially, and you just log into a website and you can track all these key variables that are kind of growth factors. So I think that this whole trend that we're talking about here is really about sensors in our lives, and how more and more little devices are going to be connected to the internet and basically transmitting data about our real world that will help us. Hopefully, it's not a negative thing, but help us kind of better manage the resources and our time as we try and accomplish things in life. And I think this does kind of have a new media connection, and that's just like what we were talking about with Swell, right?
Yep.
Swell is going to tap into sensors that will help better understand what we want as far as content, and augment that and help us save time and effort in doing things. And I think that's what these sensors are going to bring to all of our lives. So anyway, it's an interesting thing. I'd love to have that monitor on, for my power usage on our system here too. So if you send me a link to that, that'd be great.
Yeah, I will. Another thing that has come up that I'm seeing more of too, and this is really concerning to me in the podcasting space, and it's actually something that was posted this morning. He gives an example of it over on one of the G Plus communities. Was, he used my show, Rob's show, Orange Strange Brew podcast, and Amazing Ruckus podcast. He's saying, how come these are different? And basically, on my listing, that's up in the top left-hand corner, because Geek News Central is part of the Tech Podcast Network, we have a network channel, so it's over on the network, in the network section. The second part was on my show, I show my name underneath the title, but on like Rob as a podcast, he has some metadata there, and same thing with Strange Brews podcast. Now, looking at these right off the top, my just real quickly, I said, well, it's because I'm using the iTunes author, and it basically populates that area. And it turns out that this guy, Todd Chandler, is using a Libsyn RSS feed, and all I consume is that Libsyn is using the iTunes author link as well. But when I went back and looked at Rob Has a Podcast, he doesn't use the iTunes author. So it looks to me, and I'm sure these guys are trying to work this from an SEO standard. I don't know if it helps them or not, it looks to me like they're not using the iTunes author tag in their RSS feed, and iTunes is pulling something else. Now, I tried to look at that, and I think what it is, I think that Rob probably has a network channel, and he's able to change that. Same thing with Strange Brew News. They probably have a network channel, and I just haven't changed it in ours. So I'm going to go into Apple's network directory and basically where the network stuff and look and see if there's an option to change that there. So,
well, and it could also be that Apple, see, and I faced this challenge a little bit at we're working on the Zune podcast area too, is that dealing with RSS feeds, and you've kind of alluded to this a little bit up to this point, is kind of like dealing with stray cats.
Yeah.
There's a million ways that you can create an RSS feed.
Yeah.
And a million ways that people will and do populate the metadata in those RSS feeds. So there's structural differences, and then there's content differences, and people will actually not use tags appropriately.
Yep.
They'll put different information into those tags that it should be in those tags just for probably a variety of reasons of just not knowing what to put there and wanting to put something there that's because they want to promote something.
Yep.
And so that could be what's going on. Apple may be looking for the best tag. I'm pretty confident that they have a pretty advanced back end on how they manage feeds and how they're flexible enough. I know it was the big thing for many years with the back end that I had at Microsoft was that it was a very, very strict RSS spec parsing engine that we had. It was really geared towards RSS2 and was very strict spec. And then I look at show feeds that have been added to iTunes, and I couldn't add them to my catalog,
right?
Because they were just so bad. And I think that the issue is that iTunes, I think, backed up and looked at RSS feeds differently than most people do. I think they look at as what they can get out of them, not necessarily what their specification, kind of requirements are. And they pull out the information that they need, irregardless of specs of RSS.
Yeah, and if something's missing, they file back.
Yeah, they have like a secondary way of pulling from a different source in that feed, and they're much more flexible and being able to do that. So
and that was something that we learned early on. If you're going to pull 20, 30, 40, 50, 100,000 feeds, a person's speed at the feed loads makes a huge difference to us. Because I hate to say it, FeedBurner, my God, they're killing us. They have the slowest. Everyone is so, and I've stated this from the beginning. It's not like I haven't been very public about this. Is that they're just slow, and the feeds load slow, and then some people try to put all their feeds, all their episodes in a feed, and iTunes has a limit of 301 episodes. That's the most iTunes will list.
Well, and then Apple changed the spec to require 1400 by 1400 images in there too, which didn't help that either, right?
Right.
Because all the images that we publish for Podcast One they're all about 1 meg.
Right.
Those 1400 by 1400 graphics are like crazy big.
Well, and some people are using PNGs instead of JPEGs, and we tell everyone that's making the 1400 by 14 image use a JPEG because they're much smaller.
Yeah, and it's also, I hate to say, but the Zune software, and I spent a lot of years working on this stuff. There's different flavors of PNG files too.
Yeah.
Some are kind of vector-based PNG files, and they don't actually appear in all aggregator platforms. They're not necessarily compatible. I had to replace a lot of graphics that just wouldn't display because it was so proprietary.
Yeah.
The PNG format. So anyway, you just have to be careful. And I agree with you 100%, Todd, that all podcast graphics should be JPEGs.
Yep. Hey, one thing, Rob, that I failed to do today is I failed to put up my curtain. So we will find out here in about 30 minutes or not whether or not I'm going to have to stand
Get
up and put this
nailed
stupid thing up. So
with a laser, right?
Yeah, you had an issue that you came up with. You told me you want to talk a little about 301 redirects, and for those of you that are really not familiar with a 301 redirect, Rob, maybe you can give them the backstory here.
I don't know if there's necessarily too much of a backstory. It's really a hack at the server end that can get you out of trouble with having a problem, or you need to change an RSS feed. And it kind of gets back a little bit to the topic of feed burner, and it's a much deeper topic. But I had an issue on our Podcast One platform where a mistake was made in a 301 redirect, and it caused just a domino effect of getting taken down from iTunes, and the app's not working right, and displaying the wrong content in a particular show feed.
Oh.
And it just caused all this domino effect, on Android and iOS and stuff. And I was able to kind of pull it back and kind of reassemble everything, and it's almost there. But it's a very powerful tool. I mean, you have to be very careful. 301 redirects can cause domino effects in a platform, and you have to, and across platforms too. But it is a great tool to be able to migrate subscribers. So let's say you have a feed that you've had in iTunes and out on the internet for a long time for your show, and you built up quite a following on that. But you want to change host providers, or you want to change platforms, and you have to. I mean, you can't duplicate that feed again.
Right.
You need to have a way to be able to. It's basically just a redirect. It's not a really complicated thing, but it can it can be a good thing to have, and I know that the iTunes folks actually recommend that over even their own tag that they have.
Right.
To change feeds in their platform as well. So, because I mean they're pretty straightforward about it too, and I feel this way too, that you can do that to change it in iTunes. I mean, use their namespace spec to do kind of like an internal kind of change for a feed. But the problem is that's not going to fix it for everybody, right? That's only going to fix it for people in iTunes, which is 75 or 80%, but.
And some services don't offer the 301 redirect. So I mean, don't offer the
that's the next thing.
Don't offer either 301 or the iTunes tag. But what's even more dangerous is that if you have site stuff indexed by Google, when Google sees that 301, it basically updates the Google search engine too. So if you get indexed, if you've made a mistake and you get indexed during the time that it's wrong, you could lose all that metadata that's in Google could just be, all of a sudden it goes 401 or whatever the mistake was. It could be really bad. So, 301 is not to be used lightly.
No, but it's a powerful thing. Yeah.
But, you can do some really cool stuff. Now, when Geek News Central moved off of movable type many, many years ago, I had literally thousands of URLs that went dead. So we wrote a parsing program that basically said here to here, here to here, here to here, and we left that. And it was a huge, database, or not huge. It was a huge text file of all these, thousands of redirects. But when we put those up, it only had to be up for maybe a month or two, and then we got all the search engines basically redirected, and we were able then to say, okay, we don't need to have all those up anymore because the search engines have been updated with a new link. And you don't lose Google juice with that either. You stay in the same spot. Mm-hmm. So we've had to do that on sometimes when I've reconstructed some stuff, but most folks. Most podcasters will not be capable of implementing a 301. because it's something you almost have. If you're on a shared hosting account, you have to ask your host to do.
Yeah.
With a ticket, and you say, I want it to go from here to here.
Yeah, I mean, it might be a question to ask that host provider before you ever put your show up there, if it's possible to do, some sort of a config file that can tell the server to do, a redirect. I know,
Yep.
There's probably hosting accounts that you can get from Rackspace or a bunch of places if you want to get involved in doing your own WordPress, which is exactly what I do. I have a bunch of WordPress sites. Ones at robgreenlee.com that actually I had a podcast up there that I pod faded on, but
even shared hosting accounts can use you have to access the HD access file and implement that redirect in the HD access file. And in most hosting accounts will allow you to do that. But when you have if you have your like if you're on Podbean or Podomatic or Libsyn, where they're basically a vertical stovepipe where you don't have access to that data, you have to ask the host whether or not if they're capable of doing 301s later, if you decide to move. And I know at least a couple. I think Rob, they're real good about putting in the redirect in the RSS feed. I don't know if they'll do a 301. Maybe they do.
I don't know. Yeah.
I know that they support people moving their feeds, but I don't know about the other two services, to be honest with you. Matter of fact, I kind of know the answer, but I would ask those two services very carefully.
Yeah.
And sometimes the support is, some of these companies don't even have support in the United States. Their support is being run. Well, a couple of the companies are run out of China. And one of them does have U.S. support, but I think two of the three have all their support. Libsyn has local support, but I think the other two have overseas support. So,
yeah, Todd, I was also thinking this past week, it will be nice to have this kind of podcast patent kind of behind us issue, because it's like this kind of issue that's kind of like, it's like a cloud over the whole industry right now of what's going to happen. And I think it's going to kind of come to a head probably late this summer. I don't know. I haven't heard a date of when kind of the next court dates are for both of the Corolla and then the EFF.
The EFF timeline we'll know around Christmas time, whether or not. Time. Yeah, okay. There is a set. The patent office has a set, basically response, and it, I think they get 5 or 6 rounds, and it's like 30 days in between, and at the end it gets closer. But then, at some point, I think December 15th or so is when that's it. That's the last, hoopla with the lawyers, and then it'll take the patent office who knows how long. It could be the new year before we hear anything from the patent office, because normally government stuff, you start around that 15th to the 23rd, and you don't get a lot of. Just like any other business, things slow down a little bit. So, I don't know. We'll see. I don't think we're going to get any resolvement until the end of the year.
Yeah.
Mike
very,
says,
very likely.
Mike says in the chat, Libsyn will do 301s. So
that's good.
Yeah,
that's good. I think it's a powerful solution to a problem. And running a network. It's something you have to do on a regular basis to help people move on, So it's important.
One of the challenges that we've had is, and something that I've got to talk to Angelo about is, so we'll have a hosting customer. They put their show on hiatus, so they cancel their account, thinking that we will continue to store their media, and and then come back a couple months later, start their service again, and automatically assume that their media will still be there to be available to be served. Now, we've gotten smart enough over time that we know that this happens, and we have a certain amount of time limit we have that from the time a person cancels before we really delete. And we actually don't delete their media. We stick it in an archive, and it happens more often than not. And then the podcaster's like, my feed's not, my media's not working, and we go in and we're like, oh yeah, you canceled your service. We archived it. We're gonna, it's gonna take us a little bit to get your data unarchived, and then they freak out, and I'm like, you canceled for 2 months, and you're now, you're demanding that I do. So podcasters have to have some realistic expectations that that this is a business, and most businesses work Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, and if you figure out you got a problem like that on Saturday, while we try to help you, sometimes there's nothing can be done until Monday. But so I don't know. I guess we're just supposed to support serve people's media for free.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean it's something that I run into a lot too. Is shows kind of come and go, and new ones launch, and other ones kind of fade away, or as a network, as far as Podcast One, we decide that we don't want to carry a new show or carry a show on the platform anymore because it's either not performing or whatever reason. And how do you move them?
Right.
You can turn them off, but there's this domino effect that happens with that. I mean, you spend a lot of time building the distribution of a show, building it, and it's hosted, and taking a show apart is not an easy thing to do. It's maybe a little easier than creating it, but it's almost as much work to take a show down and disassemble it than it is to create it. I don't know if a lot of people think about that when they start one of these things.
Well, a lot of times shows just disappear, and you don't really, they don't even have a goodbye episode or anything like that, and sometimes it makes you wonder. But we luckily don't have to deal with the outbound migration. That's when they decide they want to leave us, they can leave us, and they figure out how to migrate their media. But what we've made it is just dead simple for folks that right in the interface, they log in, and once they've created their account, they can actually, we've got a selection that says migrate media, and as long as they have as many episodes as they can in their RSS feed, and we tell them to expand your RSS feed to as big as possible. If you've got 800 episodes, and set the number of episodes to 800 before you run this request, and then we'll pick it all up, and then we just pull the data over. It's queued, and we start downloading it. But one thing that we've just because we've done this so many times, I told Angela, okay, we've got to move. What do we do now? And so we actually build a tool in PowerPress that allows them to change the URL, so it actually does a search and replace, so that they can take their old URL. If they were hosting at anyhostingcompany.com and they want to host with us, they change that link, and we try to make it, I guess for a better word, painless. But what really happens is you've got people of varying tech levels.
Yeah.
And some people are just scared, and I understand their reluctance to hit, commit or to do something. So I think that's why a lot of folks that once they get on a hosting platform, oftentimes they never leave because they perceive it to be too hard to move.
Yeah, or making a change can have domino effects that maybe they didn't anticipate, or something. If they have expectations that something is going to operate, and it doesn't, after you've, it's something you really have to think about. I mean, let's say you're operating a website and you've put your episodes up on your website on a separate page or something like that.
Yeah.
It could create all these dead links on your page unless you go in and remove all those or something. There's domino effects that happen from taking episodes down off of a server that, there's people that are linking to them on other websites. You just don't know. So it can cause a lot of domino effects that sometimes could be unanticipated, or unthought about before you make a move. And I've come across that before and made those mistakes, and I had to go in and try and restore things. And if you're around this and you've done a lot of podcasting over the years, you probably have experienced a lot of this stuff. But if you're new to it, you just don't know that. You don't think of those connections.
And another thing too is that when we periodically will go and pull an entire feed, because we know people make changes, and even though we're just updating generally, there's periodically we have to go and pull the whole stack, because we know that these types of things happen. And there's not a lot there's no way to easily detect it. So in order for us to update the database, but again, it's limited by the number of episodes in a feed. So if you have a small feed, we may not get that metadata from those older ones that have updated. So that's where, that's just why and I hate to say it, but it reiterates the importance of having your own .com. Yeah. Because if you want to make a change, then you make the change, and you're not beholden to a third-party service to fix you. You got to count on them being in business forever and implementing your 301 on all your feeds, not just the RSS feed, the media links forever. Yeah. And most of the time, that's not in their interest to do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
One thing I've also noticed, Todd, to kind of move on to a new topic here is there's more and more media companies that are launching, when you say kind of mobile-first websites, is the terminology that's being used, and really what they are is really responsive design websites. I'm seeing it happen a lot more down in Hollywood. Around podcasting platforms and things like that are down there, where and it raises the question in my mind a little bit, of the long-term kind of place for apps versus websites. And I wonder if we're going to see the web kind of come back a little bit as a resurgent platform on mobile, as we move into this next phase of sites that are built on kind of responsive designs and mobile first kind of UIs on the website. I don't know what you think about this and what your thoughts are, but I'm not a big fan of a fair amount of these mobile website designs quite yet, but I can see where it's trying to go. And if you combine that with HTML5 and we've talked about that on the show before, I can see kind of a future where mobile websites can find a place again. I don't know. What's your thought on it?
Well, let's show the audience that are watching what responsive design looks like so that they know what it is.
Yeah.
And let's see here. Can I do this? So what responsive design is depending on the size of the browser, the page restacks itself. And so for our site, this is what we would expect someone to see as they come into our website on a really thin mobile device. Now, if they come in with an iPad, or actually if they come in with an iPad, they're going to see the full site. But it restacks itself and even relabels. And so that way, if you don't have an app, but you've got a responsive site design, and again, every implementation is a little different. And we made our stuff so there's hot buttons. Any one of these that expand down,
yep.
is basically a hot button, and we carried that throughout the entire site. So I think that's important when you do that. Just don't do the front page, do the whole site.
Yeah. I agree with that.
Yeah. And I think I like it, to be honest with you, because again, I have a Facebook app, I have a Twitter app, I have I've got a lot of apps that I use, but where do I go to? I go to page 1 and 2 on my phone. I've got the United, Foursquare, Twitter. I've got the podcast app. Then I've got Facebook, Google Plus. I've got Authenticator for AWS. I've got Google Hangouts, iRecorder, and then deeper in is, like Kindle app and Hootsuite and Zinio. And so, where's the podcast, the individual show podcast apps? Well, they're deeper, So do I want to do the search function and find them? No, what I want to do is I want to load my browser up and go to the website.
Yeah, and I find that there's capabilities on like Twitter and Facebook's sites that are greater than what's in the apps. And it could just be because I'm on Windows Phone and the apps for Windows Phone are just not as powerful. But I do have bookmarked on my homepage links to Twitter's website, as well as I have Twitter's app. And
Right.
I've learned that there's capabilities that the Twitter app has that are different than going to the actual website. I can, like settings.
Right.
I can make more changes in the settings if I go to the Twitter homepage in my browser. But if I use the Twitter app, it doesn't give me access to as much stuff. So I'm finding that I kind of use apps and websites kind of at the same time, and I have shortcuts to both because there's advantages to being in both worlds.
Well, what we try to do is make the user experience the same, whether or not and not limit features. But then, but we went HTML5 all in because the iOS is, we don't have anything on the website that's Flash. Yep. And I hate to say it, but the folks over at Adobe screwed the pooch. They really did. And so Flash is, if you got Flash on your website now, you just you figure anytime an iOS person comes on the site, they're not going to see it.
Yeah,
and it's going to be a weird box that says cannot execute or something like that.
Well, and it's not just iOS; it's Android, it's Windows Phone, it's it's basically on every major platform, mobile device. You just can't. Nobody can see it.
Yeah, and and then Java's a whole different. That's a whole different disruption. JavaScript's still heavily used, obviously, but
it's vulnerable. Yeah.
But I don't think the web would work without JavaScript at this point.
Yeah.
But at least the phones do support it, which is good. Mm-hmm. But I know on this responsive design, it's a trend. Everyone's doing it, and I think it's important. If you're going to have a website, you got to have a responsive design website, and you got to think about when you're designing the site what it's going to look like, in a small phone or in a Windows phone, and you need to test with each device too.
Well, and I think somewhat it's more of a usability issue. I don't know that having the typical implementation in the past was to create a desktop version and a mobile version, right?
Right.
And I do have to say, like on a larger phablet type mobile device, which I believe everybody is moving towards, is larger phones. You can display the full website. I mean, I've got a 1080p screen on my 1520, with the 6-inch screen, and I can see the whole website. It's not like I need a responsive design on that phone because it's a larger screen. And in some ways, I see that responsive design somewhat as a hindrance because I think that the actual graphic design elements of a responsive design site can be so large that it kind of dominates the screen, and it gives you access to less information. And I think that there's a key paradigm shift that's happening where sites and mobile experiences are become very, very heavy graphics experiences where they have really large graphics that take up the half of the screen, and text is being pushed further and further down the stack of importance. I don't know if it's just because people don't want to read anymore, or
Well,
they just they just like visual imagery, but it feels like that's the direction that the whole industry is going, is just big images.
my kids only use mobile devices. They don't use tablets.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so for them, it's, where are they at right now? They're on Pinterest. These are the sites that they're at. So they are living in a visual world. So there's a certain age group that's heavily into the visuals. And the visual stuff, as long as the graphics are beautiful, it can make a site look pretty stunning, even though it might be content devoid. It's...
But is that going to put more pressure on Google and the search engines to be indexing the visual contents of graphics more?
I don't know. How do they do that?
Well, they can do that pretty readily. Actually, the founder of Swell actually sold a company to Amazon. I think it was called Snaptel, that basically had an algorithm that scanned the visual graphics to pick up context and faces and stuff. I know Facebook does this too, where it can scan an image and come up with who that person is based on who's in the image. It can actually do a like an associational reference. So I do think that graphics and photographs will add a lot of context to searches and discovery in the future. Because I think it has to, because we're moving more and more away from reading text, and text being an important element of content consumption. You see, it's Twitter is an example of that, right? We're getting 140 characters because people aren't spending time reading long articles. I mean, like I posted one of the articles, the first article that appeared in the Pottertainment app. I don't know. We haven't talked about that app in a while. That has articles that we've written. I posted the first article. I don't know if you. I think I saw you posted part of one of the articles that appeared in that app. But what's your thought on the Pottertainment app right now?
I haven't used it because they only have an end date. Well, I haven't. I don't think I've actually loaded it. Let's see if I've got it in here. It's kind of in a weird place. It's in books.
Yeah. I'm not sure that it's getting a lot of traction. I certainly don't get much feedback.
Yeah, I'm not getting any feedback either. That's why I've been posting my articles on the web too, because if I'm going to, I spend a lot of time writing these articles. Yeah. I know that one thing for sure, it looks, it's definitely has a magazine feel in it on the device.
We should probably give a little context. There's probably a lot of people that don't know about the Pottertainment app.
Yeah, let me bring up the website.
It's basically a magazine type book that's only available on the iOS App Store, bookstore, and it basically has about 6 or 7 or 8 writers that are writing about podcasting, and Todd and I are one of the 8 folks that are writing articles in this app every month. And so we're up through the May issue 3, and both Todd and I put a lot of energy and thought into the articles that we post in this app. And you do have to pay for it. I think it's like $12.99 a year. It's like it's like $1 a month or something like that. And so I just posted my first article from the issue 1 on my blog at robgreenlee.com, and it's like a 1,200 word article.
Yeah.
And it's when we talk about kind of structural issues in the podcasting space, I know Todd talks about stats and things that he is discovering. So Todd, I don't know if you want to talk about stuff that you write about. I write about kind of like podcasting trends and platforms, but anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, right now I'm first 3 articles were really surrounding stats, and the 4th article that I'm working on now is going to talk about mobile. And I'm going to go into it's again going to be mobile statistics, but it's going to kind of lay out who the players are, who's the biggest and the baddest, and then talk about percentages and what and I'm really kind of directing some of this at some of the podcatcher developers, and there'll be a little bit of, I guess, for a better word, scoldings in there to those folks, basically saying, "Hey, how come we can't measure you?" And it's and largely because there's some technical stuff that goes along with it. But I want podcasters to be aware that they may be getting consumption on a device and or on an app and not even know it's just because the app developer's been lazy and hasn't put certain metadata in their app. So we'll be talking about that and giving some overall percentages and what we saw. I think we're going to pull April's totals and use April's numbers for the sampling, but it'll be kind of a similar type of. I did a slide at New Media Expo where I kind of talked about mobile a little bit and used some of those same type of metrics type stuff.
Yeah, and then this most recent issue, the third issue, I did an article on. It was basically titled "Podcast Content versus Distribution," and is the battle just beginning? And I think I kind of expand on what I see happening around content and the platforms that are distributing this content, and that there's the beginnings of friction that's starting to happen between platforms that want to monetize against content that they get for free, and and without deals and without a relationship with the content provider, and it gets back to issues of reporting. It gets back to issues of shared revenue, and some platforms are just running pre-roll ads against your content without any relationship with you, and depending on the content provider, they may be selling pre-roll ads to sponsors, and some of these platforms are running pre-rolls against your pre-rolls, which is against
right.
The agreement that the content provider has with their advertisers, and so I kind of expand on that conflict that's coming, and how the podcasting platforms that are distributing content need to make money somehow in order to justify the continued investment in engineering and bandwidth and things, and creating apps, and I think that we've been all lucky that Apple is kind of invested in the podcasting space and not really expected any kind of a revenue share from having that content available on their platform, because they do that with movies, music, TV, and apps, right? And so I don't know, that issue may change over time. I don't know, but I knew it was a big problem of what I ran into working on Windows Phone and Zune podcast areas, that there's no business model for aggregators that actually makes any sense to them. And so you have quite a few companies that have venture investment, and they're putting money into these companies, and it's very difficult for them to monetize, which puts the whole industry at risk, because what if those companies go belly up?
Yep. True. One thing I talked about, Rob, in the last article too, and I have a great graphic example. And for those of you that aren't watching, I'm holding a business card, and I'm holding a pair of scissors. And the business card, we're going to consider that's your media, that's your audio file or video file that's sitting up on the internet. And here's Mr. Listener. And what happens today, and this is what I talk about in my last article, is when someone comes in to listen to a file and they hit start, what happens is the media is served in chunks. So it's an awful thick business card. So they get the first piece of media after they start hitting play, and then progressively they get a little more. They get another little chunk served to them.
Todd,
yeah.
Can you explain what the basis is on those chunks?
It's called byte serving.
Is it based on what the speed of the connection is, or is it based on some fixed amount of data that's transferred?
The chunks can be different sizes for every person. It largely depends on size, device, and so forth. So it really kind of depends. And really what will happen is as you listen, you'll get more and more chunks. But sometimes what will happen is that, and if we use another business card as an example, someone will hit play and they will just scrub to that part of the show. And they won't even have listened to this part. This part here is gone. So they'll listen to this part of the show, but yet they won't have listened to this part. So what we've got now the ability to do, if we're looking at the raw data logs, is
that's a fast forward, right?
That'd be a scrub to a fast forward to position in the file.
Exactly.
Yep. So what we're able to do now is depending in each. Now, I could have a pair of blue scissors, pink scissors, green scissors. That individual, that is one unique guy that's come out and grabbed this media. So for each guy or each piece of each scissor, each different colored scissor, I can see exactly what that person did. I can see exactly how they consume that media. And we've got the ability then at the end, we stitch that all together. And I can tell how many pieces or how many stitches, and we report this in percentages. I can see, and I can give data to the vendor. I can say, hey, we delivered the whole media file. The whole thing got to you, or 3/4 did. We know that he got 3/4, but he didn't get any more than 3/4. And then what's even cooler is if that guy comes back later on the same IP and starts pulling the same file, we can kind of restitch that back together even then to see if he comes back and listens later. So, if he changes IPs, it's going to be a whole new
It's going to be a new unique.
Yeah,
right?
unique. So, and really that's the analogy here is we've got the ability now. Now, did they listen? Probably.
We don't know for sure.
But it raises the probability. We can at least tell the company that, hey, for let's say 1,000 files, we know that 80% of your audience downloaded 80% of the file, or 90. Or we can give an average, and we can break it down on where the cutoff was. And what we actually found was that in certain shows, we had a show where a certain part of the show, the audience disappeared. There was this line, I got to a certain section and they dropped. Now that line shifted from episode to episode, and so we said, what's going on? And the vendor went back and looked at those episodes and looked at that timeline, and they said, oh my God, we have a segment in here where we're bringing in a guy. He's obviously abrasive. The audience doesn't like him, and they leave. They drop. They're gone. So what they did is they changed their programming up so that segment was gone, and lo and behold, that chop point didn't happen anymore. They went all the way to the end. But it's really incredible to also see how high the percentages of listens that don't go all the way to the end. Do not place advertising in your last 10% of your show. I'm just going to tell you that is not a good place to put any podcast advertising.
Or a post roll? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, because the percentage of people that actually go all the way to the end that's pretty small, and it's not. It's just it's a surprising number. It really is, and I don't have the data in front of me, but we are consuming podcasts kind of the same way we're consuming a lot of other stuff. We're picking up bits and chunks and pieces, and
though it's probably people that are really rabid fans about the show that are trying to get. I mean, if the show is compelling, people a certain percentage of your audience that are really engaged will listen all the way to the end.
All the way to the end.
And it's also depending on how long your show is.
That's
too.
True.
If your show's 2.5 hours long, they're probably not going to make it there.
And
but if it's shorter, they're more likely to.
And remarkably, the 8-minute shows are seeing real high percentages of completions. Now, here's part of the reason too. It's
downloading.
It's downloading. It's chunked all the way through, and it's downloaded. Yeah. So again, you can't tell if they listened all the way through, but at least the whole media file was delivered. But until Apple starts sending metadata back when they hit stop. Now, the only thing that we see now when they hit stop is we see that because it's byte serving, we see that the file has stopped serving. It hasn't completed. So that is the, it could be, either it's usually indications they've stopped playing. Now, it chunks ahead a little bit, so there's a certain amount of buffer that's in the media file.
Well,
so,
some players have more intelligence around that than others too. I mean, other ones you just hit play and it'll like download the whole thing
right.
and then play, right?
That's right.
And then others will actually stop the download at a certain stop point.
That's true.
Yeah.
But
so you have a kind of different experiences based on different players.
It's true, but the iOS by default, by the Apple by default, doesn't matter which app you have, still byte serves. The deltas come in on the Android devices, and but it is pretty interesting. Some of this data that I looked at, it was actually concerning to me. I was like, wow, I was like, boy, it didn't bode well. But as I looked deeper and deeper into the data, it was like, okay, that kind of makes sense. You look at an individual show, and if it's a 15-minute show and you're seeing this huge drop off at the 13-minute mark, you go to the 13-minute mark and you're listening, and it's kind of like, okay, guys, we're done, we're out of here for the day, and they continue kind of talking for a couple of minutes, and people don't have time for that. They go, they leave. So keep keep the people there. Maybe put a sweetener on the end. Some little, tell them, hey, there's gonna be something there at the very end of the, near the end of the show that we're gonna want you to listen to. That way, you keep them all the way through. Otherwise, we do see this kind of chop point in a lot of shows. They do leave.
Yeah.
But it's kind of interesting to see what you can get now. And actually, I was not a big fan of the byte serving to begin with. Angela was. She was, oh, this is fantastic, and because it really reduces server bills. And, for him it was fantastic. For me, I was kind of grumble. But now I understand the power of it. It really is pretty powerful of what you can get out of it.
And it may be powerful from two perspectives. I mean, sure, you can probably use that data with, buyers, that want to buy advertising, but maybe you don't want to use it for that.
Right.
Maybe you want to use it for just making a better show.
That's right. Exactly. And, when someone scrubs ahead to 10 minutes, why are they skipping the first 10 or first 5 or fast forwarding to that position? Why are they doing that? Or, and also when the client says this, what is the drop off? Now, sadly, when, for us to do that, we have to have the raw log files. There's no way we can ascertain that kind of level of data with a redirect, in which we use. You just can't, for the clients that aren't hosting with us. So later in the year, what we're going to do is we're going to start offering to all of our hosting customers this deep level of data sets that they're going to be able to get. Hopefully, it's an incentive to come over and host with us.
Yeah. Well, Todd, I bit the bullet yesterday.
Oh, you did? What bullet was that?
It was about a $1,800 bullet.
Oh.
I bought pre-ordered the Surface Pro 3 i7.
Surface Pro it's $1,800.
Well, that's with the keyboard, which is extra. So that was the total bill after taxes and all that stuff. So it's expensive.
You're missing that Microsoft discount now, aren't you?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
I'm trying to.
No, actually, I don't think that they would have given a huge discount on that, because you only get, as an employee, you actually only get $1,200 that you can spend in the Microsoft Store.
Oh, really? For the life of your employment?
No, for each year.
Oh.
Each year. So that wouldn't even have covered the cost of this thing.
So you so they give you up to $1,200. So that's your credit you get.
No, actually, you still have to spend the money. That's just your spending limit that you can spend. Right?
Wow.
So it's basically a spending limit. It's not a credit per se.
So so I'm looking at the $800 price range. Where did you come up with the
Well, if you
1800.
go in deeper and click on the Core i7 256 megabyte version,
All right.
and
I don't
you'll
even
see
I don't even see where to buy, I guess. All right. So,
it's probably right under the price there on the left.
oh, okay.
That's my guess. But I was really impressed with this device.
Oh, there we go.
Okay,
256 gig ice.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah. That's the base price for the tablet.
wow.
But that's a Core i7 I think it's a 0.36 thick tablet.
Right.
Inch tablet. It's like a third of an inch thick. Or yeah, it's really thin. It's as thin as the Surface 2, not the Surface Pro, but the Surface 2.
I guess when I see, what I have a hard time with right now with this is convincing me that this thing's got the kind of power you need to do something. I guess if it's got an i7.
Yeah, no, it's got a Core i7 at the top end of the Core i7 processor range. Plus, they've come up with a really flat fan system that's silent,
Right.
but can, from what I gather, will keep that i7 cool.
Huh.
But I mean, it was just such a cool device. I'm currently using a Surface for my everyday computing for work, but it's a first gen. It's a first gen device, and it's rock solid. I never have any issues with it at all.
Yeah. I'm due to do a desktop upgrade, and I've used a desktop for for years, and I just get more. I feel I get more performance out of a desktop. Maybe it isn't the case anymore. I don't know.
Well, it's going to replace my desktop. I'm going to use that as my only computer.
Really.
So I'm going to go out and buy the dock that's going to come with it, and so I'll be able to slide this into a dock on my desk that will have all the ports in the back that they'll already be connected to my monitor, to my mixer, to everything.
Right.
And so all I have to do is take this tablet back and forth to Los Angeles with me, and I have a 27-inch screen down in LA, and then I have a huge screen here on my desk.
How many monitors will that support? Because I use 2 monitors all the time.
It should support two to three monitors. It's capable of driving a 4K screen.
Wow.
So it's a very powerful tablet for its size. It's the smallest Core i7 computer ever made. So it's I couldn't pass it up even though it was a lot of money.
Right. What's the RAM on that thing then? How much memory does it? 8 gigs.
It's 8 gigs. So
is that
I'm
the
going to
max?
treat it as a total desktop replacement.
Yeah, 8 gigs, boy. I don't know if I just don't know if it'll, 8 gigs is kind of low to do like video editing and that kind of stuff.
That's true. That's probably true. If you're looking at doing a lot of video, it's probably.
But still, at one
it's
point,
probably not enough. Probably
1.76 pounds. Well, it's kind of funny to just talk about that because I'm really leaning. I was thinking, my Mac Pro is that I use for video editing and everything's getting a little long in the tooth.
Yep.
And so I was over on the Apple Store, and talk about sticker shock. So I'm looking at this thing and I'm thinking, okay, it's not too bad. So I click the old buy now button, and I'm looking 6 core 4000. So I click on that and I'm thinking, okay, let me look here. Look at the processor. If I want an 8 core, what I currently have in my, so let's click on an 8 core. $54.99. Oh, let's look at memory. I'm going to want at least 32 gigs of memory. Now we're up to almost 6,000. It just is.
It goes through the roof.
And you're thinking to yourself, well, that's about 3 times what I really wanted to spend. And for $6,000, I can buy a pretty incredible equivalent Windows machine, and I can't see it. I can't see spending $6,000.
Yeah, if you think about the price of that compared to the Surface that we
Right.
just talked about, I mean, we thought that 1,800 was a lot of money.
Yep.
But
So
Yeah.
if I really think about because I try to make my desktops last about 5 years. I think that's about the age of this Mac Pro. So you really, if you do the math, and it's about 1,800 days is 5 years. And if I was going to spend $6,000 on a machine, which is just to me is insane, the cost per day on that is still like $2 or $3. So that just didn't make any sense.
Yeah, that's expensive.
I
I mean, the desktop computer that I'm using to do this show right now is I bought back in 2008, so it's almost, what is it, 8 years, or no, 6 years old now. And I just need to replace it. It's got a quad core processor. I mean, it had it was a powerful machine back when I bought it 6 years ago.
Right.
And it still works good for what I do, but I'm also having problems with the motherboard is losing its battery, so I have to tear it apart and put a new kind of motherboard battery in it if I want to keep using it.
Right. So if you think about a $2,000 investment over 5 years, that's just under $1 a day. And that's what your machine's costing you. And I looked at this Mac Pro, and this is really, to me, and it's just all about the numbers. It would be like $3.31 a day. So then I think about that on a week standard, so 7 days a week. That machine has to make me $23 a week. That's just base costs to financially support that thing over the long haul. I know it's a weird way of doing it, and most professional businesses would say $23 a week is a great investment for a tool.
Yeah.
Or $100 a month. And for me, it would make sense with my current sponsorships. That would be, not an issue to support. But that outlay of $6,000 is that's the thing I have a hard time wrapping my head around.
Yeah, it's a lot, and you still need multiple computers. I mean, that's just one computer,
That's
right?
one.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's not going to be an earth-shattering change for your business either.
I figure I could get rid of. I've never done video capture on the same machine that I'm just like working on, for show notes and stuff. I'm sure that machine would handle it just fine. So I might be able to, and also I was thinking about from the power consumption standpoint too, because the old Mac Pro is about 200 watts. It's about what it uses in power. And that new machine that Apple has is definitely lower on the power consumption side. So,
Oh, that's good.
but that's is that a justification? It's very, very hard to justify.
Well,
that.
being where you live and your power rates, it's basically it's more of a factor there for you
Right.
than it is for me here.
Yeah.
Because
for
you're
sure.
paying what? Did you say 35 cents a kilowatt?
36.
Is that right?
Yeah, 36.7
Thir-
cents.
Yeah, and I think I'm paying like 6.8.
Right. Well, the 6
Not
times less.
fair.
No, it's not. And it's they've got these. Hawaii's always we bring in oil. We're so environmentally great here in Hawaii, but they've caused issues with people putting solar on now because the power companies complain it's causing the grid to go unstable. So now they've got to the point where you have to pay extra money to have this like $5,000 more to put the solar in because you got to protect the grid. It's kind of a little insane, but we do have the highest number of PV systems in the nation for percentage wise. But PV is only good during the daytime. It's not good at night. So at some point they're going to have to re-implement battery solutions.
Yeah.
So.
Yep.
Well, anyway, we have digressed quite a ways here, but Yeah, that's cool. You're gonna have to let me know how this thing works out. When do you expect delivery?
Actually, it's not going to be delivered till the end of August.
Wow, it's just pre-orders right now, then, huh?
Yep, yep. And so I can just keep going with what I have until it gets here, and then I'll make a big shift over. But yeah, I also wanted to mention here the June 4th and 5th. I'm not gonna be at one of these events, but the Convergence event down in Silicon Valley is going to have quite a bit of discussion around podcasting. I know Norm, our CEO from Podcast One, and Mr. Adam Carolla are going to be on stage talking about podcasting at that event on June 5th, and then I'm going to be on stage at the HiVio event in San Diego on June 4th. Talking about podcasting to the radio side of things, and so I just wanted to bring some attention to both of those events. It's the Convergence event in Silicon Valley and the HiVio, and that's HIVIO, and it's going to be the HiVio, which Mark Ramsey's been on the show to talk about, is live streaming that whole event.
Right.
I don't know that. Is that it there? I don't think that's the event. I think that's a different event.
July 3rd through 6th. Okay, so let's go back and look.
I think it didn't look familiar. So yeah, the 1st of June is going to be, there's going to be a bunch of, kind of news that comes out around those events around podcasting and digital radio and audio and stuff like that. So if you're a big follower of this space, you might want to keep an eye on those events. And the topics that are going to be discussed down there is mainly around content and how content is driving these audio platforms now moving into the future, and monetization and all these kind of things. A lot of the same topics that we cover on this show every week will be talked about at those things at a higher level, I think.
Well, it should be good, and I might actually be heading out to Houston for a couple of meetings, and then I actually might be in your neck of the woods, Rob. I'll let you know.
Okay.
So
down in LA or
yeah, might be able to stop in and see you guys. I haven't got anything firmed up there, but you're going to be out that few days there in June. So
no, just I'm John only June 4th.
Okay. So
I'm going to drive down to San Diego from Los Angeles.
So if I did come into LA, that would probably be late in the week that week, maybe Friday or Thursday or something. So maybe it all depends on what the meeting schedule is. So I'll let you know. Maybe stop in and chit chat.
Thursday would be a good day. Friday, I'm back up in Seattle.
Oh, that's
again,
right. That's right. So
yep.
Plan from there. Actually, it might work because I might be able to go up to San Francisco on the 6th and then do some meetings up there. So Friday's always hard, especially getting into the summer months. July is really bad in the media buyer world because they all go on vacation in July. So,
yep.
All right. Well, next week then, Swell CEO will be on, and
Spreaker, I believe.
Oh, Spreaker.
Spreaker is going to be on. It's yeah. I have a couple of guests. I can't remember which one I have booked for next week. I think it's Spreaker.
Okay.
The Spreaker's CEO, he's actually working out of New York, so he's going to call us from New York.
Okay, that'll be fun to find out what they're doing and get up to date on what's happening in their platforms.
Yeah, and we had a comment from a follower of the show that I saw on Facebook, and I think you saw it as well, about our format for the show.
Right.
And the idea was that maybe we have a guest on that's maybe on for maybe 2/3 of the show, and then we, guest leaves, and Todd and I do like a post-game analysis.
Yeah.
As a good format, and I kind of like that format. I don't know what you think about it,
Yeah,
Todd.
I think it's good. I think it works out well, and we get to kind of chat freely about that. And I think it works out when they do that. It allows us to cover other stuff too that may not be applicable to the guest too. So
Yeah, yeah. So let's just plan on doing that, and when I book guests, I'll just book it for like maybe an hour, and then the last half hour we can just talk.
okay, sounds like a plan. Well, everyone, you can email Rob and I here, Todd or Rob. It's not. Don't do Todd or Rob at New Media Show. Do Todd at newmediashow.com or Rob at newmediashow.com. And
it's a merged email.
Yeah.
That's right.
And of course, you can follow me over on Twitter at Geek News. So feel free to follow me there. And of course, you can follow Rob at Rob Greenlee. Yeah.
Yep, that's the best place to find me. And if you want to actually read that article that appeared in the first issue of Pottertainment, it's up on my blog right now at robgreenlee.com.
Yeah, I was actually going to bring that.
And speaking of that,
Sure.
I did add your new HTML5 player to my site.
Good. I'm glad you did.
I had an HTML5 player in there, but it was the old one. That had that button that you push that then launched the player. Where this one actually just shows up there. You can see it on the far right there. And if you scroll all the way to the bottom, I've got each of the episodes, and I changed the title of the blog too. But and I've been thinking maybe I'll create another. I'll create audio episodes off and on. It's just been crazy for me the last 3 months.
Oh, so you just come into a job and it's like you step right in and everything's running smooth, right?
Exactly. No, and that totally caused me to pod fade. So.
Oh, I tell you, and I understand completely. Now, my only schedule, Rob, just so you know, as we're moving forward here, and I should tell you this offline, but the week of the week of the 7th, there'll be no way I'll be able to do a show July 12th.
Oh, okay, because I already booked a guest for the 7th, so okay.
Wait a minute, 7th of June is good. It's July. I'm talking July.
Okay.
So right after the 4th of July probably is not a good day, but I will not be available either the 5th or the 12th.
5th or the 12th of July.
Yeah,
okay.
I'm doing my first family vacation in a number of years, so I will be completely disconnected from the grid that week.
5th and 12th.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I fly out to Riverside, kids in a soccer tournament through the 6th. We go to Disneyland 7th, 8th, 9th. And then we go to San Francisco 10th, 11th, 12th, and fly back to Honolulu on the 13th. So.
Gotcha.
Yep. Okay, that's it, everyone. Thanks for being here. We'll see you guys next week. Should be a great guest. And Rob, thanks so much for your time this morning. And
thank you.
Everyone, take care. We'll see you next time here on the New Media Show. Everyone, take care. Aloha.
Bye-bye.
All right, let me shut the live stream off. Well, there was a lot of people on the live stream, but they weren't in the chat room. That's interesting. Peak Connections 32. Huh.
Well, some people just don't want to get engaged, I guess. They just want to watch.
Yeah.